everyone, I'm Jane Hanson. This week in the arena, what happens if we refuse to ask for forgiveness or refuse to grant forgiveness to others who have wronged us? And what happens if we've done something for which we cannot forgive ourselves? Joining us now, and our very special guest today, Bobby Petrocelli, nationally known speaker and author of several books, including 10 Seconds Can Change Your Life Forever. And we're going to start with Bobby because that is exactly what happened to you. Tell us your story.
Well, Jane, I was married, happily married for about 2.5 years, living just south of Houston, Texas. I was working as a high school teacher and a coach, had just moved into my very first house, didn't buy it at the time, had rented it, had met my wife, Ava, in Texas. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and it's always great to be back in Brooklyn. And we were married for 2.5 years, and this one Thursday night, I come home from coaching in a football game, talk to Ava a little about the day's events, and usually during football season, we wouldn't get to spend a lot of time together, except on the weekends, a little at night, on Saturday night, Sunday morning church, just because of how busy my schedule was. We talked very little about the day's events, about the upcoming days, and this late Thursday night, she goes to bed, I crawl into bed next to her maybe 15, 20 minutes later, and little would I know that I would wake up 1 hour later, and instead of being in my bed or my bedroom, I'd be sitting in the dining room window, which was the next room over, and I would be staring at a full-size F-150 Ford pickup truck parked in the middle of my dining room, and somewhere under that truck was my wife, Ava.
So what happened? A truck literally smashed into your house?
While we were asleep, a drunk driver traveling approximately 70 miles an hour came speeding into our development. He lived further in the back part of our development. We were the first house. He lost control, swerved over the road into this grass field that preceded my house, and at 70 miles an hour ripped through my bedroom wall, ran over me completely. I was somehow miraculously flipped up on the hood of the truck. Truck crashes through the next wall, deposits me in the dining room window where I came to, and Ava was buried somewhere under that truck.
And your wife was killed in this process?
And she was killed. Actually, physically, nothing happened to her. The way it was explained to me, when the truck landed on her, it knocked all the air out of her body. The sheets in the mattress wrapped around her face and her body simultaneously. She never got another breath of air, and she suffocated.
This is one of those horrendous stories where you think, how on earth do you go on with life?
Maybe because of the way I was raised, I understood from the very start that this would probably be the most difficult thing I could ever dream of facing. But because of the way I was raised, I always understood the essential desire to strive towards or attain towards forgiveness. And the very first night, Jane, I'm laying in my hospital bed, surrounded by friends and family members in the Houston area, people from the church where I had attended, and I prayed a very simple prayer that night. I said, Lord, this will be the most devastating thing I could ever dream of facing. Ava's dead for 2 hours. It still hasn't hit me. But I knew that at that point, I said, somehow, some way, I know you're going to have to give me the strength somewhere down the road to forgive and move forward, because that's the only way I'll ever be able to go forward.
So the person there was a man that rammed the truck into your house. He wasn't injured.
No, he had a very small gash on his forehead. That was the extent.
Okay, and then he obviously went to trial. He was charged, etc. And he didn't spend much time in jail.
He was sentenced to 10 years for involuntary manslaughter, was supposed to serve approximately 18 months to 3 years, and only served 4 months. And that is the key, though. That is the key about forgiveness. There cannot be a condition to forgiveness. I'll forgive if, I'll forgive when, or I'll forgive but. And please excuse the expression. When people will come to me and use the word but, I'll say you got to get rid of your big but. Okay. Because the reality is there can't be a condition. Because then what happens is I dealt with a woman one time who had her son murdered. And she had heard me speak, and she comes up to me and says, I'm going to prison to visit this man and tell him I forgive him. And if he fulfills these 5 different criteria that I've set before him, then I'll forgive him. And I said, don't waste your time. She's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, if you set a condition and he doesn't meet that condition exactly, you will never truly be well for yourself and never move forward. And people would ask me all the time, but Bobby, Forgiving this man would not bring Ava back. You're darn right. Forgiving this man would bring Bobby Petrocelli back, and that is vital. Forgiveness never condones wrong. It's a healing that I believe the good Lord has created in all of us, and sometimes the first person we have to forgive is ourselves.
So, Bobby, have you ever spoken or physically seen this man?
The only time I saw him was the very first night, other than in the house, when he talked to me and said, is there somebody else in the house? And that's when it clicked that, where's Ava? And I was frantically running through the house, trying to lift the truck, trying to find where she might be. But the next time I saw him was with, I guess, an hour or so later in the hospital. He was in handcuffs, and I saw him walk by, and Ava's family had arrived at the time. And I said, that's the man I saw in the house. But I never saw him, talked to him, or addressed him after that. And I always wanted to, but he didn't want to talk with me. And I wanted to let him know that I did not forgive him to condone his wrong, but that was part of my healing process. It would be what Ava would want, and I believe, as Monsignor even said, I believed it would be what God would want me to do, because he knows what's best for me, and that would bring me to be able to maybe move forward eventually.
Do you have any idea what happened to this man's life after he got out of prison?
Well, what came back to me, because it was local and I knew a lot of other people in the area who knew him, they said he and his wife eventually divorced, and his 3 children basically isolated themselves from him and disassociated themselves from him. And my heart went out for him, because I truly believe that his ultimate desire that day was not to get drunk and kill an innocent woman. But the reality of when he had his own pain and maybe even his own unforgiveness, that he thought alcohol abuse could drown it out, eventually it would bring more problems and more hurt.
You, in your book, and you've written several, but in this book about what happened, you say 10 seconds can change your life. And one of the messages I take from here is it was a 10-second event, the reality of him hitting your house. So we all make choices about what we do, and had that man had the opportunity to not make that choice, Ava might be alive. You wouldn't have had to go through the forgiveness, etc. So do you ever think about that?
Of course. I mean, every day we're all faced with choices. And here's where I came up with the whole philosophy about 10 seconds. When I relived the whole tragedy, that it took no more than 10 seconds. But people would say to me all the time, and Monsignor, you alluded to this at the beginning of the program, is that people would say to me, Bobby, take this 1 second at a time. And I'd look at them like, are you crazy? I can't even get through the moment. I'm overwhelmed in this moment. And when I got to do work with 9/11 families, that was probably the greatest compliment they gave to me. Thank you. We found somebody who understands how in the matter of 10 seconds. So I try to teach people and show them that in life, the more we focus on the moment at hand right now and make the best of that moment, then all of a sudden it prepares us for the next moment to maybe be a powerful, exciting, liberating, forgiveness-filled, whatever we want to call it, but it could be a moment that could be filled with more hope in life.
Mm. Well, we want to learn more about how you talk to people and how you've taken this forward. We're going to do that in just a moment. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.